So, would you want your guy to sacrifice his life for you? And I suppose the best way to frame this is, in some hypothetical scenario, would you want your boyfriend or husband to take a bullet for you? Starting with you.
Sure. So I wouldn't necessarily want that scenario to take place, but you're saying in a hypothetical situation
where one of you has to...
One of us, okay. Yeah. So my relationship, my marriage is based off of biblical principles. So when I ask that question, I say, what does the Bible say about it? And the Bible says that the husband's role in a marriage is to love his wife like Christ loved the church. And so that means basically to lay down your life if you have to, because that's what Christ did for the church. He laid down his life. So I guess in that hypothetical situation, if my husband was following the principles of the Bible, he would want to do that. So yes.
Yeah, but to clarify this, though, hang on, I'm sorry, before we can move on the question, I got to clarify two points. First, just for my own curiosity, what denomination are you?
I'm non-denominational.
Non-denominational, Protestant?
I think Protestant's a denomination, isn't it?
No, it's just, yeah,
we
won't get into the specifics.
Myself
it's not important, but just for my own...
I call myself a follower of Jesus. That's it. I don't say I'm one thing or the other.
Okay, got it. So the question specifically is, would you want in that situation, would your preference be in that situation that the husband, because you're saying he has higher duty, correct? So you're saying he has a higher duty, and part of this duty is to protect you, and part of that protection is that he takes the bullet, right? Just to clarify.
I would say yes.
Okay. All right.
I think when you love someone, if you love them unconditionally and...
No such thing as unconditional love.
When you really love someone, I think you would want to put your life down for them. So honestly, I wouldn't want him to necessarily step in front of a bullet for me, because I would give my life for someone I love. Does that make any sense? So he would want to do that for me as I would want to do that for him.
I feel the same. So I agree with her. I would also do the same. I would do the same for my husband, but yeah.
Yeah, but see, this is why I was really specific on questioning you about this, because you claimed that it was not a preference, but that he had a higher duty. There's a distinction, and I hate to harp on this but details matter, right? So does he have whether you want it or not, does he have a higher duty to do it from your worldview?
I guess define higher duty,
No, so the definition of a higher duty is the prevalence that his duty to jump in front of a bullet takes precedent over your duty to take one for him.
Then no. Sorry, I didn't understand what you meant. So
then how is that a reflection of the church? I don't understand. Because you started with the reflection of the church is that the man is the sacrifice, as he is the head of he's the representation of the head of the church, which is Jesus Christ, who sacrificed himself on a cross, right?
Right.
So then,
but my duty
so then his duty, wouldn't his duty, his higher duty, be to sacrifice himself for you?
Yes. So it's yes and no, because I also feel like my position as a Christian or as someone that loves Jesus is to also replicate him as well. So for me, I don't just say, okay, only the husband has to do this.
I think it's like
it's non-exclusive.
What?
So it's my duty as a Christian that believes in God to replicate basically what Jesus lived. So it's to follow Jesus is to live as he lived on this earth. And so that means to lay down your life for a friend, a husband, someone you love, whoever. That's just the way that it is, the way that I believe. So I don't want to say my husband, I require my husband to do it, and I don't expect myself to also want to do that thing for him, if that makes sense.
It doesn't make any sense, but we can move on from him.
Okay.
I think you answered you would take a bullet for him. I mean, but do you think, would you date a guy who wouldn't be willing to do that for you?
No, because that means that he doesn't love me in the same way that I love him. If you love someone, you're in a relationship with them, or let's say in a friendship, this is my best friend. I would take a bullet for her as well, just as I know she would want to do for me.
But isn't this sort of a unidirectional thing? Only one person can protect in this scenario. Only one person can take the bullet,
Yeah.
right? So, I
Well,
mean,
it's whoever's faster at.
Exactly.
would it be? Do you think men would refuse to date a woman who isn't prepared to take a bullet for them?
No, I don't think men necessarily. I don't think
They
that,
wouldn't. They don't look to women for protection.
No,
Yeah.
that's
Do you think a guy is less masculine if he wouldn't be willing to take a
Yes.
bullet or die
Yeah,
for his
because I-
girlfriend?
I
or
do.
wife?
If there
Okay.
was an active situation where that was happening and he freaking pushed me to the side and like ran away, I would be like,
You
yeah,
dumped
that's
him,
not
right?
a man.
You dump
That
him.
is a little
Do you
baby.
think men would, at similar rates, if their girlfriend did something similar, like ran off scared, coward, whatever, do you think they would be more or less inclined to perhaps they'd lose attraction or end the relationship?
I mean, that's up to the man. And
Do you think they would care less, though, than
I do
women
think-
would care about that?
I think women probably do care more
Okay.
about that.
Your answer to the question, do you want a guy to sacrifice
Can
his
I,
life?
can
for
I,
you?
I'm sorry, can I jump in just
Sure.
real quick, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you a question on this, kind of following up on Brian's question. Do you think that you're an honorable person? Would you consider yourself an honorable person?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that it's appropriate then for whatever man you're with to defend your honor?
Yeah.
So
Does-
if that's the case, if he's defending your honor, that's going to put him in a situation where he could get hurt, right?
Yeah, that actually did happen in my relationship.
So
that I'm
so
in
then
now.
hang on. So then
Got-
if that's true, then you're basically saying that he has a higher duty to
Yeah.
take damage over you.
yeah.
So the expectation is not equal that you're going to take a bullet for him, he takes a bullet for you. The expectation is that he's going to take the bullet, right? Because you're willing to just put him in harm's way on behalf of your honor, right?
I'm not
Yeah,
willing
not that
to.
she's willing.
I'm not willing to put him in harm's way in any scenario, but
Well,
it's-
no,
he-
but hang on. Nope, because we just went through it. Answer one. Man has a duty to defend your honor because you're an honorable person. You literally said your man has that duty. So if he
doesn't
has a
have to
duty to do
necessarily
this,
lead to
that means you.
violence,
Hang
though.
on, almost done. The entailment of that is that you would be willing to put him in a situation where he takes damage on behalf of just your honor.
If
Describe
someone
a
was
situation like that.
If someone was attacking my honor, how am I putting him in that situation? I'm not
Well,
going out of my way. I actually have a scenario.
Well,
that
hang on. I'm
goes
going to tell you how.
perfectly with this. Okay.
I'm going to explain so that you understand. Because your expectation for him is that he has a duty to defend your honor. So if that's the case, if he has a duty to do this, then you have the expectation that he's willing to put himself at risk just to defend your honor. We're not even talking about, a bullet at this point. Just your honor could actually get this guy killed, right? Potentially it could.
I also have a duty to defend his honor as well.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to defend it the same way, are you? You're not going to be able to, for instance, if a guy is bad-mouthing him or something, you're not going to be able to walk over and punch him in the face. It's not going to be very effective, is it? But he can do that on behalf of you, for a male, right?
You can
He
verbally
actually do
defend
that.
someone's honor without it leading to violence.
Yeah, but that's not what we were talking about.
Well, it's
We were-
interesting that
and
you
by the way,
said-
hang on, almost done. And by the way, the situation that you're talking about, when you said that actually happened to me, I'm guessing included violence, didn't it?
Do you want to hear about the situation? Or?
Did it include violence?
Well, yeah, but not.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
Okay,
So
so,
anyway, go ahead.
do you think that he shouldn't then? Do you think that he shouldn't defend
Well,
my
it's
honor?
not a question for me. It was a question for you. So I'm just giving you the entailment of your logic. If the entailment of your logic is, wait a second, it's equal. I would take a bullet for him. He would take a bullet for me. And yet, when we get down to the nitty gritty, you believe that you're an honorable person, and you therefore believe that your honor should be defended by a man. This means, if that's true, that you're willing to put a man in harm's way just for the purposes of your honor.
That is putting
We haven't
so
even
many
gotten to
words
a
in my
point.
mouth, but I also
Well,
can
no, I'm not
defend
putting
my
words
own
in your
honor.
mouth. I'm just giving you an
I can
entailment
also
of your
defend my
logic.
own honor, and that's not how logic works. You can't just say that I'm willing
Oh,
to
tell
put
me how
my,
logic works. Give me one rule of law of logic. Give me one law of logic. One.
It's based in fact. In truth.
What? What? Can you give me a single law of logic?
Can you?
Yes, I can
Okay,
give you all
so
three
this
laws
is
of logic. Would
semantics.
you like
This
them
is
all three in a
semantics.
row?
You're putting
Here, let me
words
give
in
you
my
all three of-
mouth.
No,
I
no,
also
stop,
can
stop,
defend
stop.
my
I'll answer your
honor.
question. Let me give you the
You
laws of
can
logic so
interrupt
that you
me, but I-
understand them.
okay.
The first is the law of non-contradiction. The second is the law of excluded middle. Right? How many would you like? Would you like to get into informal logic as well?
Yeah, go for it.
Would you
Andrew.
like to get into the law of identity? That's the third law. What else would you like?
That's semantics at this point.
No, that's literally the opposite of semantics. Do you know what semantics are? Because that's not semantics.
Okay.
Can you help
Natalia's enjoying this one.
She has so
I
much she
do.
wants to say.
Here,
I
you
can
guys
tell.
can let me just get everybody's answer on this, and we can come back.
What
if
was
necessary.
the question?
I would like to come back to this.
Oh, you want to keep going?
Well,
okay,
I
here,
just
go
want
for
to.
it.
I just want to clarify that by me saying that I would want my man to defend my honor is not me purposefully putting him in harm's way. I'm fully capable of defending my own honor as well. And I did say that I would be willing to defend his honor, but you said it wouldn't be effective. So that's.
Yeah,
No,
I found
no,
that
wait,
interesting
wait.
that you
So I
literally
can't-
said
sorry,
that
I
she
can't-
would
I
not
can't give
be
you-
able
can't give her- Hang on, hang
to.
on.
In the
It's
same
our
way you said it
argument.
would be
Let us
effective.
have it.
No,
Let us
no,
have it.
no.
Hold
No,
on, just let him respond. Let him respond. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, let me respond. So, the entailment, it is an entailment of your logic. So that you understand, if you make the claim that you have honor and a man needs to defend that honor, the entailment of that is that he's going to get put in harm's way. I don't know how you get out of that. That is basic deductive reasoning.
I also said that I would be willing to defend his honor, but you said it wouldn't be effective.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with anything? Even if that's true, it does
I
not
think
negate
that if you
the point of the
respect
entailment
someone
of your logic.
and someone is attacking someone that you respect, you would be willing to defend their honor. That's just.
A man also has honor.
Hold
that
on.
need-
Okay. I'm moving it on. Go ahead. Answer the question.
What was it? Would I take
you
a
want-
bullet?
No,
Would I? What was
Would
the
you
question?
would you want a guy to sacrifice his life for you, take a bullet for you?
Oh God, like right in front of me? No.
So you'll take the bullet.
Okay, here's an other way to frame it. Would you date a guy who wasn't willing to sacrifice his life for you, assuming you've been dating for 2 years or you're married?
No, I would. I mean, like, because the expectation would probably be, and as he said, that I wouldn't be able to defend his honor in the same way. But
Forget the honor thing.
Sure,
Forget the
but
honor
if,
thing.
you know-
Just answer the actual question.
well, I think of like my friends who I love, and I would take a bullet for them.
Would you?
I would. And so if
take a
I
bullet
were
for
to
your
be
friends, okay.
in a committed relationship with somebody, with a man, and I would feel that way about him, I would want him to feel the same way about me.
But okay, isn't there a gender expectation for men to protect women?
Who are these people who are coming up to me and being like, you are your boyfriend, like choose now? Like that's not a hypothetical that I'm ever.
But it's a mentality.
Yeah, it is a mentality, and
here,
I'm
let
not
me
saying
help-
I
let me-
expect
let me-
somebody
hold
to
on.
die
Let me
for
just
me,
help.
but
Let me help you guys.
Like a burglary.
Hold on. Let me help
yeah,
you
I
guys.
need some
here.
help.
Let me help you guys so you can have an enemy. I would not be willing. I don't care if she's my girlfriend or wife. I would not be willing in that scenario to take a bullet for her. I would not die for my girlfriend or wife.
Would you watch her die in front of you?
If in a hypothetical scenario it's me or her, she can take the bullet.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm not taking it for her.
Have you been in,
Scoot
have
your
you been
mic-
in
scoot
love?
your mic that
Have you been
way.
in love with somebody before?
Yeah, I've been in love.
So
And you would let her die?
These women,
Something spill.
No, it's empty.
you're single.
I don't disclose my
Okay,
relationship
so-
status.
You,
Why not?
I'm not going to put words in your mouth, so I'm
Go
just
ahead.
going to ask, and you can tell me if this is correct.
Go ahead.
You
can do split.
would probably prefer a woman who respects herself and has, confidence, high self-esteem.
Yeah. He
What?
wanted, I think.
Do you want a woman who
How's-
respects herself or doesn't respect herself? Do you think a self-respecting woman would look for that in a partner? For
Don't
them
care.
to blatantly say,
Don't care.
okay, so
She can respect her. Yeah, I'd prefer to date a woman who respects herself. Sure. I don't really see how that's related.
okay,
but-
so if we're talking about like high value women,
So now, okay, so
we go.
because I've taken this position, now you guys can actually answer the question. So what you're saying is, in order for a woman to respect herself, she would only date a man who would be willing to sacrifice his life
No,
for his partner.
I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm more so asking like the kind of women that
Well,
you
you-
would want to attract, right? Because what you put out there, you also attract.
Yeah. So is your position a woman who doesn't respect herself would be willing to date someone like me? Because ignore any other considerations, but just by the fact of
if a woman doesn't
I would not be willing to sacrifice my life for a girl who, for example, I've dated 1 year. I wouldn't be willing to do it.
You said wife also.
Sure,
so,
fine. 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever. Don't care. Any period of time.
I guess in this situation, I would say probably not.
She's not self-respecting.
If you're actively
So what about a woman?
advertising that, I don't think a woman, yeah.
Okay, so then just reverse it. So would a guy not be self-respecting of himself if he wasn't willing to date a woman, or if he dated a woman who wasn't willing to take a bullet for him?
We've already established that I think men have a higher.
Okay, so it's a gender role.
Yeah, it's a gender role.
Okay. Okay.
So that's not really your beliefs.
Actually, it absolutely is. But did you give your answer? Demi,
Huh?
did you give your answer?
It worked.
Yeah, didn't I?
That's
Did you?
pretty-
You guys can't actually answer this straight.
What did I say? That I would expect him to take a bullet? Yeah.
You guys say, well, I would do the same thing for him, but you got to understand, this is only one person can take the bullet.
Can I chime in?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think it's a lose-lose situation.
Don't,
Because
don't,
I think if a man did that for me, I would die of a broken heart. If I had to
That's-
watch the person
that's
I
actually
love die in
retarded.
front of me, like what
Say
would be the
that-
point?
We weren't allowed to say that word.
Whatever, I have the pass. I'm
sorry.
I'm a Arsler. I can say
Okay.
it. I have the pass. You would die of a broken heart. Okay.
That is so traumatic. Watching your husband or
I
loved
think you're
one-
overthinking the hypothetical a little bit here.
Are we or are you? Like, what is are we in
Most-
two
do you
separate
think
rooms?
most-
Like, we don't have to watch? Like, what is the
Yeah,
hypothetical?
it sucks for widows. I get it. Do you think they die? Like they die too?
I
A lot
would
of
never
them
be the
remarried.
same.
Huh?
I would never be the same.
Yeah, but okay, that's kind of irrelevant.
I would honestly rather take the bullet, I think, because I don't think I could mentally handle that.
Yeah,
Like,
and then to
So
live with
you'd
the
rather
trauma.
die.
Yeah, it
You
would
can
be my time
mentally
to
handle
go.
orgies and shit. You couldn't mentally
Those
handle
are
this?
fun.
Like,
Those are
isn't
fun.
that
Excuse
also
you.
extremely damaging to a person's psyche? You
That's
can handle
fair.
all that.
It depends how you
Watching
look at
someone
it.
get murdered is just a little bit
It's-
different.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
just a tiny bit of a different thing.
Okay. Here, go around the table on this. I need to adjust the camera set.
Yeah, I think that there is an expectation on men to protect women, and I think that I think it's extremely noble, extremely honorable, extremely sacrificial, and I think men should be looked up to for that responsibility. That's how
So
I
would
feel
you
about
prefer the man to take the bullet for you?
Yeah.
That's it.
I would. I would prefer it. Even though, like, I would be a wreck and I would be heartbroken. Like, I would be hurt if I would not want to be with somebody that didn't have that mindset.
I agree.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I'd prefer it.
Okay. Perhaps this question ought to be framed as, would you date a guy who was not willing to sacrifice his life for you?
Well, see, that's what I was kind of like. I would prefer it, but I wouldn't necessarily immediately look down on a man if he didn't.
And he has more
I
to
wouldn't say
lose.
he was low value just for that reason alone.
Yeah, well, because we brought this question up recently, and it will kind of somewhat segue into the main topic of the show, the man versus bear thing. But, and I've stated this in 2 other podcasts so far, and it's honestly quite an interesting conversation that we always have on this. But the frequent comments that I get on this is, well, you're less masculine because of it. You're not a real man because of it. You're going to have a hard time finding a woman because of it. Women shouldn't date you because of that. So women seem very upset by this idea of men not falling into this disposable role of they ought to sacrifice their life for a woman. But so ultimately at the end of the day, what would you want?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I would. Sure, it would be nice if I like the idea of a man I'm with caring enough to want to protect me like that. But like I said, I don't think if a man like if for whatever reason that conversation somehow got brought up, I wouldn't say that he's low value or not a real man or anything of that nature just because he wouldn't want to take a bullet.
Okay, here's the scenario. Let me change
Okay.
this up a little bit. You've been dating a guy for 2 years.
Jess Gerald donated $200. For the panel, what about you, specifically, is worth dying for?
Okay, we'll go around on that in just a second here. But so the question is, you've been dating a guy for 2 years. This conversation comes up because you watch the Whatever podcast, and you're like, that host is a pussy.
I wouldn't say that.
And then you're like, what would you do for me, babe? Would you take a bullet for me? And he's like, nah. He doesn't say like whatever. He says it in the most diplomatic way possible. He just says, I love you, babe, but no, I wouldn't do it.
What
Would
would
you
I-
break up with him?
No.
Is it the end of the
No.
relationship?
No.
End of the relationship? Causes serious
No.
issues in the relationship?
No.
No, I don't think it would end the relationship.
No.
No.
If that's the case, if the guy really says that, there's probably other things going on in that relationship that
Billy
he's
donated
falling short at.
$200. The delusion, being in the real situation none of you would, expecting the man to do it isn't realistic. Only time a man would dive in front of a bullet and die would be for his children.
Yeah, that's one scenario where I'd be more inclined to do it, would be for the kids, but not for the lady friend. It is what it is. Going back to Gerald, he asks, for the panel, what about you specifically is worth dying for? You can give short answers if you'd like. We'll start with you. Go ahead.
My faith.
Wait,
Your what?
your faith in your husband?
My faith in God. I would die
No.
for my
Why
faith.
would
No,
that?
why would
no,
somebody
no.
else
The
die for
question
you?
isn't what you would die for. The question is, what about you makes it worth someone else dying on your behalf? That's the
I
question.
don't think there's
She just
a
answered
good
that.
answer. to
No,
that.
I don't know, to be
Okay.
honest.
What about you?
I don't think that there's anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to like a
Specifically.
random stranger, nothing, but to somebody that I had like a very close, personal, intimate relationship, I'm sure they could find many reasons, many things they like about me.
I agree with that. I think if I'm the love of someone's life and they were willing to make that sacrifice, then it would be important to them and they would see things.
Well, what are the what are the specifics though? What would you say the specifics are that would make you a person who's worth dying for?
I'm not specifically saying that I am, but I also think that I'm awesome, and whoever ends up with me should probably think that too.
What?
Sorry. I had to do that. All right. What about you?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think this is what the problem, or one of the problems with society is that I think, and tell me like why this is wrong if it's wrong, but I really think that, can you not? It just distracts me more. I think that it's because I'm a woman. So a man should be. Yeah, that's my answer.
Sorry.
Actually, I'm happy to go down this line
Thank
with
you.
Grid 1
help me
Motorsports donated
understand it.
$200. Of course these girls expect a man to take a bullet for them, so
can
they
leave
can
it up.
step over his corpse and move on to the next swinging deck. Do not expect a man to be a bullet magnet when you are a degen.
Who hurt you, and are you an incel?
Ooh.
Who hurt you? And are you a prostitute?
No, she's not the.
No, that's me.
She's not, that's Demi.
Wrong girl.
That's Demi. Yo, Grid, you don't want to invoke his. You don't want to invoke Grid once. He'll be sending in chats all night now.
Don't you want that?
no.
It's more money.
By the way, he's married and he has kids. He's definitely not an incel. Thank you, Grid One. Appreciate it.
But I wouldn't mind going down this line with you real quick because I kind of enjoy where it's going. So you're talking about the ontology or the being. You're saying that by nature of being a woman, there's possibly some kind of entitlement in society for that, you think?
I think that there is an aspect in society where women should be protected. So if it means entitlement, which actually I think it probably would actually be, I don't like the word entitlement, but I don't know what other word to choose.
Well, let's go with entitlement. I think that's a good word, and I think that kind of encapsulates what you're saying. If such a thing is true and you have this type of entitlement, this would give you feminine privilege, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think men do have it worse.
Yeah, so
I love
if
being
that's
a
the
woman.
case, shouldn't men get additional privileges that perhaps women don't get?
What privilege are you thinking of?
Well, I don't know.
What's an idea of that privilege?
The expectation is that they die on behalf of women just because of the ontology of women being women.
Well, they do that. They go to war and they do that.
No, I understand, but we're not talking about what they do. We're talking about what they should do. And you're saying they should do it just by via the nature of you being a woman. Okay, fair enough. I can grant that that's true. But if it is true, then shouldn't they get some kind of additional privileges on top of that? Shouldn't they be kind of heralded in society?
I do think that.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem is that we're not looking up to men. We're not respecting men. We're not.
You can show it. Keep going. Don't worry.
I think that is part of the problem, and it's like a cause and effect type thing where women are being devalued because men are not being valued like they should be.
I also think it's like the sassy men apocalypse out here, and that's why women are doing things like OnlyFans these days.
Wait, it's men's fault?
No, I'm not saying that. I can take ownership. I make my own decisions. But I do think that...
Go, girl.
Is it sassy man apocalypse to not want to die for your girlfriend?
No, not necessarily. I don't really have a strong opinion on that either way.
Sassy man for not wanting to.
Some people might think that. I don't really take
I think something's wrong there.
You're sassy for a lot of reasons.
I think that something is wrong with you.
I think when you say sassy, you just mean doesn't put up with your shit. I think that's what that means.
No, I think it's like the men who want to be catered to.
Guy doesn't put up with your shit. That makes him sassy.
No, it probably should be that.
Here, let's get everybody's answer to this because I do want to get into the main thing. We will come back to the bullet conversation, though.
I'm kind of confused on what the new question is now.
Wait, no, we went around on this.
Yeah.
Madison, I think we're just.
He said he wanted to engage on the original.
Here, we'll come back to that just so we can get to the bear thing.
I actually oddly agree with your position on this, and I can explain myself why. So, Frankie and I have actually had this conversation before the question was even proposed on the show. But personally, obviously, we'd want to have a future together and children. So I would take the bullet personally because I think that he would be mentally stronger to take care of the children afterwards. I think I'm a lot weaker. So after he died, it'd be harder for me to just live without him. And
this is if you had kids,
children.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just even about the honorable question, I do think I am honorable, but I think he's more honorable.
Yeah, I mean, so this is actually this is actually one of the arguments I make. Even in the scenario, let's say we have 2 kids together, if we look to men to be providers and protectors, well then, if we're looking at this from this new angle of what's best for the children, then I think, and we know the outcomes of comparing single father households as compared to single mother households. Children raised in single father households tend to fare far better than the reverse. There's actually a very compelling argument to be made that actually it's better if the father survives in these circumstances.
But if his role is to be a protector, wouldn't he have already failed at that role and therefore not be a suitable protector for the children?
Well, you could.
That's a good point.
I mean, you're making some assumptions there. I mean, who's to say that he would fail at protecting the children?
I don't think necessarily. I get what you mean, but I feel like if the father, which I do feel in most, not all cases, are usually more of the provider for the family in general, that they're going to be able to continue still providing for their children. Whereas, let's say it was a stay-at-home mom. Now what?
Well,
I mean, we can do let's say all day.
To provide a little pushback on the other end of the table to the question which is asked of Brian is, and forgive me, I'll steel man the position. You can tell me if I got this question wrong, but you asked, wouldn't the man already have failed in his position as a protector if this happens? But that's actually a straw man to Brian's position, because Brian already laid down that men have no obligation to protect women. He said that he would lay down his life maybe for his children. So it actually logically follows what he's saying when he says, no, I'm not going to lay down my life for a woman. So how would he fail at his job as a protector when he doesn't believe that that's his obligation?
You believe your role as a father is to be a provider and a protector, but not as to your wife?
Not to the mother of your children?
There's 2 different things here. I think you can absolutely still be a protector, but if there's some scenario where the calculus is, well, if my role as protector it's not even necessarily the role as protector. Like, you could still protect her with the hoped or anticipated outcome that you both still survive. But in some scenario where one of you has to die, I don't think it has anything really to do with protection necessarily if she's the one who has to die.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also on a case-to-case basis, because there are a lot of situations where the man is more financially, makes more money, but then there's also the opposite. So if you want to really sit down and talk to your partner about that, that's maybe one thing, but...
Well, men are typically the breadwinner, typically. Not always, though. Certainly there are women who are breadwinners too, but...
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a case-to-case basis, because, like, for example, my dad made more money, but I would have been way better off just being raised by my mom, because money wasn't as important as, like...
Were you raised by your father?
I was raised by, my parents are divorced, but I was mostly raised by my mom. But my dad would not have been able to emotionally...
I'm not saying that...
Even though he made more money.
There's more important things.
You're taking love out of the equation.
Are fathers incapable of loving their children?
No, it's just your argument doesn't take love into account. It just talks about how you're the provider and the protector for the children first and foremost.
I'm just speaking in generalities here.
How the outcome would be, if you needed to provide for the children. And I think like you're taking providing and looking at that as like monetarily is
Do you think fathers,
equal to love, basically. But it's
not. Well, that sounds like you're making an argument that the man is far more disposable than the woman.
No, I'm saying that it's a case-to-case basis, because money is not the most important thing in a child's life.
Sure. So if it's a case-by-case basis, then Brian would be right in saying that he should not immediately move towards the self-sacrifice, because in his particular case especially, it may be the case that that would not be in the best interest of the children who he would make the sacrifice for, right?
I'm not saying he's wrong for feeling that way about himself. Like, that's his
about
position.
Not being willing to take the bullet?
Yeah, you can have that.
I think we can all agree that you all think I'm entitled to have that position, but I think you all object to the position.
No.
Come on, you guys all object.
Not taking the bullet?
Yeah.
What?
As a man,
there's been a lot of subtle objection, whether you see it or not.
Object.
The pushback to Brian has definitely been seemingly. Now, this is seeming, so this would be inductive logic, not deductive, for those of you on that side of the table. But it does seem like you are pushing back on his worldview here a little bit. So I think that's fine, right? That's what the show is for.
Yeah,
but I'd like to hear it.
I object to that worldview.
That I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice my life for.
Yeah, I think that there's probably not the right value maybe that you're going to put on your marriage.
That's fine. One last thing on this. We will get to the bear versus man thing as soon as we get past this. Do you think, because one of the criticisms I receive when I bring up this argument quite a bit, sometimes from the panel, but oftentimes from the chat, they're like, Brian, you're a beta male for not being willing to sacrifice your life.
That is so rude.
For your woman. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I disagree with that.
Look what he's done, people.
Do you guys think it's less? And I don't like the beta alpha thing. I don't care. I don't use that kind of language really, but just for simplicity's sake, do you think that it would be so-called less alpha to be unwilling to die for your wife or girlfriend? Would it be a beta male?
Yeah.
Starting with you.
It's hard to say because like alpha is so like animal kingdom, and animal kingdom's all about survival.
We are.
Well, and actually,
so if you want to survive as an alpha male, then you would not want to take the bullet, and
it is kind of a good point.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of a little bit.
But not
my argument
because lions, that's what the male lion is for, is to like defend the girls.
No, the female lions.
The females hunt.
Lead the pack.
Females hunt. But it's when another male lion comes in that the
she
other
is
male
right.
lion
She is right.
Well, and actually,
kills it.
just one thing on the whole alpha beta thing. This originated in someone who did a study on wolves, but it actually was totally debunked. There's more nuance to this whole the categorization in wolf packs, for example. than an alpha.
Yeah, it's not so easily broken down into just alpha and betas. So,
but it is somewhat helpful
parties.
a little bit. But
Omegas.
so do you think it's beta or less alpha to
Totally
not want to
delta.
take a bullet for your girl? Quick answers if you can.
Yes, no.
Just call me a beta Brian. Just do it. I don't care.
Okay, yeah, I do think
It
it's
is?
a little bit.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Beta Brian.
Beta Brian.
I kind of see your point, just because if
What
you're
point?
an alpha, then you might have like more to lose per se. You've accomplished more in your life. Like you have this podcast, you're successful.
I'm not
versus-
calling myself, just to be clear, not calling myself an alpha
I'm
male.
just saying, like, I could see your point of view on
Sigma.
that. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but,
But one
like,
could argue because he's done all that, you know, he's already accomplished it. So
that's true.
Your thought?
Beta.
Huh?
Beta.
Beta.
I honestly wouldn't say either or.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All right.
How? I
not my
just don't
preference, but I don't think you're a beta
understand
for
I don't
having that
understand
decision.
that.
So, because this occurred to me, right? Like, because a lot of people in the chat, and maybe it's not your position that this would make somebody less alpha or beta, but like, let's think of some conquerors throughout history. You guys know Genghis Khan?
No.
Okay, Genghis Khan, he was like in the 12th century or something. He had 14 wives of high rank. I got these notes here. Oh my God. God damn it.
Billy donated $200.
Sorry, thank you, man.
Father
Thank you,
brings
thank you,
home
thank you. Just trying to make a point.
$250K plus a year, and the mother is unemployed without any educational background. Who should really take the bullet for the future of the children? Alpha Brian.
Right. I mean, if you've already had kids, I mean, in no scenario do I think the man takes the bullet. But if the guy's the breadwinner, he's more capable of protecting the children. He's more capable of providing for the children, assuming he's the breadwinner. So, well
okay,
put.
but let's say it's the opposite and the roles were reversed, and it was the male who was unemployed and the wife was bringing in that money.
You would have a stronger argument for at least one argument for.
still not willing to say that it's a stronger argument,
So-
because then we're deferring away from outcomes, which is what Brian's position is initially anyways, that the outcome for single parent homes, generally speaking, for men is better than it is for women. So even then, even with that pushback, he would still have to take that in consideration. So I still wouldn't consider that to be a great counter argument.
Yeah. Anyways,
But-
hold on. I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back here. So Genghis Khan, he had 14 wives of higher rank. I Googled this. He had many lesser wives. It's estimated he had another 500 concubines who also bore him children. Genghis Khan, you know, founder and Khan of the largest contiguous empire in history. I suspect if he had this dilemma of he had to sacrifice his life for one of his dozens of wives, right? Do you think, would he be a beta male because he didn't want to die for one of his many, many wives?
I think we all know that he didn't care about those.
Exactly.
ladies.
But does that, so, I mean, you could argue Genghis Khan.
Well, I'm not so sure that.
Uh-oh. Andrew doesn't
again,
like this
we've got a
argument.
loaded presupposition here from you. I'm not sure that I'm willing to concede he didn't care about him.
Yeah, he probably did.
not willing to
well
concede
put, well put, Andrew. He probably cared about them. Would he sacrifice his life for one of them? Probably. He'd just be like, I got
Yeah,
like
I don't-
50. Let me
yeah,
just
and
get another one.
I don't think that is right.
Okay,
on
alpha-
Genghis
Isn't
Khan's
that
part.
treating
Wait, hold on.
the women
We're
as
upset about
disposable?
Genghis Khan because of.
No,
hold on.
you
I
gave
think
us
there's
the
other things.
scenario.
There might have been other things.
Was this a moral man?
Could have been other
that you want-
things
do
you
you
could have
wanna
been
die
upset
on
about.
this hill?
You know, the
With-
conquering. Sorry, what?
I was basically just saying, like, is this a moral man? Like, you know, he could.
Genghis Khan?
Yeah.
I mean, is might.
Was he moral?
Do you look
Might-
up to this guy?
Might
Yeah.
makes
Probably
you
not.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know Genghis Khan.
So,
Like, I don't want to be one of
what do you
14
mean?
this your dream?
wives.
How sex workers going to talk about who's moral? like what?
I am not a
She's
sex
not.
worker. She is not a
Wait,
prostitute.
these two. It's
Raise your hand if you're a sex worker.
Have you
so
Raise
that
your
we can be
hand.
clear.
I feel like you just kind of zone out and then come
Hold
back.
on.
It's
Like,
just-
Okay, hold on.
Go smoke another cigarette.
Very
Can't call
close attention
anybody
to the
else.
Well, let me ask.
conversation.
Just
I
cigarettes
interject
are getting to your
myself where it's
head.
appropriate,
Hold on.
But I got to ask, like, when you ask this question of morality,
I am not a sex
there is
worker.
a Christian I see. There is a Christian I
She's
see
a
on the
makeup
panel,
artist.
So she's not a relativist. She probably has some standard justification for morals, but like you guys are probably relativists, right? So why would you say
I'm
is he a
also a
moral
Christian.
man or not?
So, I.
What's that?
I'm also a Christian, so my morals are based on biblical values.
Fascism.
Okay. That's where you justify your morality then on God.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. So, moving over though to the next gal, when you said, "Is this moral or this not?"
Grid One Motorsports donated $200.
Gotta preserve the bloodline.
The bloodline must
Gotta
be preserved. Girls like the who are in the second seat are not worthy of ending the bloodline of a man willing to take a bullet for others. Do the right thing and step in front of it.
Why was
the girl?
man's bloodline be preserved but not the one? Like, aren't I?
Richard Dawkins wrote a book called The Selfish Gene.
Oh my god.
And I think there is something, look, it would be selfish, but if you could argue the most alpha thing, Genghis Khan shit, she takes the bullet. I can just find another wife, have 7 children with her. If she dies, 7 children with the next
Great,
woman.
and that works for
7
you.
children with the next woman.
That works for you. What do you
would
think a woman
kind
is
of-
going to
Well,
want, though? Do
and
you think a woman-
continuously moving on to
But
the
she-
next woman, like that's kind of a hoe-ass mentality, to be honest
Fine,
with you.
call me a hoe.
Like-
I'm a live. I'm a survive.
So, like, going back to the comment that was previous or whatever, where, like, if a woman were to move on right away.
Pillage donated $200.
You've invoked.
Yes,
invoked his
grind
invoked his
one's
wrath.
wrath.
Hold on, before I have you make your.
Is that the
your-
one I called an incel?
You called Grid One. You did call him an incel.
Oh, so that's
Let
why
me
he's so
read
mad.
some of these
You
chats.
did call this happily married man with many children an incel. That
Well,
is
he
true.
clearly
did do
hates
it.
women, so
No, he
I
doesn't
just
hate-
assumed
he loves
that
women.
I think you hate men and you're a misandrist. But we'll just make generalities back and forth.
Why would you think I hate men?
Why would you think that he hates women? You just made it up, right?
Well, he's
he
calling
did
me
you?
a whore for Lord knows what. I mean, just
Who
by-
started it?
No.
Who
You know,
started
there's
it?
no reason. You started by attacking him personally, so he attacked you back personally. You can't cry foul.
Did he attack her
he
personally?
did attack us
Who knows who
Anything
started it?
else?
He's the
Oh
one
yeah,
that left
really?
the
What
comment
did he say
for
that
me.
actually was a personal attack to you in his first super chat?
He made a comment, and I responded to the comment.
You don't even remember what he said, do you?
There's been multiple.
I
Yeah, you
think-
don't even
is
remember
it
what he
this
said.
one?
So what happened is
Is
he
it
made a
this one?
general
Grid One
statement. You
Motorsports donated $200.
I think it's this one.
Of course, these girls expect a man to
Oh,
take
yeah.
a bullet for them, so they can step over his corpse and move on to the next swinging deck. Do not expect a man to be a bullet magnet when you are a degen.
A little
Right,
abrasive.
so he did
a
not.
little
So he did
abrasive,
not
but
personally attack you. Hang on. So he did not personally attack you at all. That's a replay of his comment. He did not. You personally attacked him, and so he responded in kind. Now you're crying foul.
you did make a bit of an escalation. It was his comments a bit abrasive, but you did escalate it by calling him an incel.
Okay.
It's okay though.
I'm sure you
We're all
guys would be
friends
friends
here.
in
Hey,
person.
Grid
We're all
One.
friends
okay.
here. It's all good.
Yeah, well,
Grid,
I mean, I don't
respond.
take any of this personally. It doesn't bother
To
me.
me,
I'm just pointing out. I'm just pointing this out
Hold
so
on.
that you understand.
Let's move away from the meta conversation. Let me get through a couple chats here. What is wrong with you girls? Actually, Natalia, can you read that?
What is wrong with you girls? I have 2, and I think your fathers are disengaged. Andrew, help me. Polly? ? WTF, you idiot girls.
Well,
love that
it's
accent.
good. It's good. Now we have another one that's about to come up. If I could have you read this one. Thank you, Pico Steins.
Great to see you back, Andrew. Congrats on the plaque, Brian. Why do women say they aren't sex objects, but their number one profitable occupation is being a sex object? Ban
Reddit
porn and
memes,
save
yeah.
society.
Ban porn. Okay. Thank you, Dylan Lawley, for that. Appreciate it, man. We have another one coming through. If you can read this one.
I would jump in front of a bullet to save a child I don't even know. I certainly would do the same for my gal. I exchange for my assigned risk. She has to defer to me in reducing risk, so I don't have to.
Very well said.
I agree with
Thank
that.
you, Big Sarge.
I think
Thank you for the message, Big
Andrew,
Sarge.
can you
Appreciate it.
talk about that? Can you like what's your opinion on if you should jump in front of a bullet for your wife or not?
Well, so I have a different worldview than Brian does. I'm an Eastern Orthodox Christian. I follow Christian ethics. So under an ethical system, I was enjoying the initial answer by the gal with the ginormous blue cross on her chest, where she said that there is a representation of how men and women are supposed to act as representations of the church, not only in marriage, but also in greater society. But I also enjoyed your answer when you were talking about the ontological differences and that there's greater duties between men and women. The reason I'm testing your guys' logic is because I seem to note that you understand that the men have higher duties, but I'm not so sure that you understand what yours are. So my take on this is, of course, for my wife, I would absolutely lay down my life, and I already have, essentially, right? I've spent most of my adult life taking care of her, and I've spent my entire adult life taking care of my children as well. So I would say that that's already laying down the time of my life to take care of that. But yeah, I would also physically do this, but I follow a different ethical system. And yeah, so that's
if
my
I
take.
may, I know the verse that I quoted earlier about the husband's role in the marriage. The women's role, I think it's important to talk about as well, because it says the husbands must love their wives, but women respect your husbands. And so that's like
Well, that's not what it says. It says that you need to submit to your husband.
yeah, it says respect and
That's
submit.
not respect. That submission is different. That's an overage, right? There's more to it than just respecting. Submission does not just mean respect. That means submission, and that's something which is absent in society, and that's why guys like Brian refuse to take a bullet for women, because they refuse to submit to patriarchal authority. And if they did, he would be far more inclined to do so. That's why, by the way, he would do it for his children. He would do it for his children because they see him as an authority, a patriarchal authority in the household, and so he knows that that's his greater duty. But why would he have a greater duty to women who don't submit?
That was
Well,
beautiful.
I agree.
That was well put.
I completely agree. And you're right. It does say that.
W. Andrew.
And I think that's a huge reason why a lot of women nowadays, you know, like there are issues with women not submitting to their significant other or their husband, or submitting to the wrong people. And I think that's how a lot of women get to where they are today, is because they've submitted to the wrong person and they've been hurt. Mm-hmm. And so there's been a response to, okay, well, that must be where I went wrong. Well,
I'm not confident that I believe your framework, that the reason that there's so many of these women who are damaged is because they refuse to submit. I would actually counter that the reason so many of them are damaged is because they wouldn't do it, right? They wouldn't actually submit. That's what I think is going on. I don't think that they embraced submission and had a bad time. I think that the opposite is true. They refused to embrace submission, and that's what gave them the bad time. Yeah. For instance, when we go around this table, the reason we got all the lifetime stories from everybody and made sure that we could get down why it is that you guys, what your occupations are and the different things that you believe. Do you think, for instance, that the gal in the blue, the OnlyFans worker, do you think that she's going to be submitting to a man anytime soon? Because I don't think she is. In fact, she pretty confidently said no. She's not even interested in marriage, not interested in children, not interested in any of that. There's no interest in submission. So I don't think it's a submission issue. I think it's a will issue. They're willful and they're disobedient. And they're disobedient in society.
Only in the bedroom.
Hang on, I'm almost done. They reject patriarchy, and I think that is the kind of fundamental cause of these flaws.